Time is 5 o'clock. I'll start the meeting. This is the Environmental Services Committee meeting for Thursday, April 3rd. As a reminder, the meeting will be live streamed and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. I'll remind the committee to declare pecuniary interest at the time it arises. We have nothing under delegations. I'll move to section 4. I have a motion moved by committee member Jeff DeVlute, seconded by Paul Rapel, that the minutes be adopted by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee, and that those confidential minutes of the closed sessions of the committee remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And that was for our meeting minutes of March 13th, 2025. Are there any questions or concerns before we approve those minutes from the committee? Seeing nothing, call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. We have nothing under section 5, so I'll go to section 6, accounts. I have a motion moved by Paul Rapel, seconded by Jeff DeVlute, that the accounts as listed be received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee. We have 3 under there. We have the water list as of February 2025, the sewer list as of February 2025, and the environmental list as of February 2025. We had that in advance. Was there any questions for staff about those? So am I right? No questions. Mayor Atkinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question on the sewer. We see we paid Volk's Brothers for ditch spraying the sewage treatment plant off of Arbor. With the amount of rain that we've experienced the last little while, is that going to be affecting that spray, or has it had enough time for it to set in and do its job?
Good, Chair. That spraying was done back in the fall to deal with the Phragmites there along the access road. So this is just a late invoice. They finally got it into us, and unfortunately, it's just being paid now.
I guess that explains it. Thank you.
No other questions. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? One of staff reports. I have a motion moved by Jeff DeVlute, seconded by Paul Rapel, that the report prepared by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated March 27th, 2025, regarding the Wyoming Plympton WWTP SCADA and PLC upgrade design, contract administration, and system integration proposal be received, and that the proposal from Aramosa Engineering Inc. in the amount of $304,347.28 plus HST be endorsed and forwarded to council for approval. Is there anything you want to add to your staff report?
Sure, thank you. Yes. So this is something that I had brought up during the last meeting. As we move forward with some of the headworks upgrades, we realized that some of this, the SCADA and the PLC is quite old, and we're not able to properly integrate some of the new components of the upgrades into those systems. So we asked Aramosa to do a feasibility study and provide us some options on which direction we could go. Some of those options are kind of laid out in the alternative section in this report, but what we are recommending is the full replacement of the PLC panel, as well as upgrading the SCADA so that it matches what we had just done in Wyoming. That will provide us with the ability to have remote connection to the plant, to be able to see things on the fly, to be able to or the new equipment to be able to be processed through the PLC and the MCC. I understand this is an expensive project at $304,000. It's pretty much in line with what we paid to do the Wyoming plant. Most of those costs will be realized in future years. There's only $65,000 to be realized in 2025, and that will be that can be absorbed into the current 2025 capital budget. Open to any questions?
Well, I will open that up for questions.
My question would be, like, if the other PLC system is outdated, you can't get parts and stuff like that, what makes this any better? 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road? Like, are we gonna go with something that, I realize things outdate pretty quick. But when you start to look at this kind of money, we better make sure we're buying it from the right provider, for sure. Something that we can get parts or get service from here in Canada. So to speak, something new to look at. So, like I say, it is a lot of money, so.
Through the chair, I'm not an expert in these systems, so I might defer to some of the Jacob staff to answer some of the more technical questions beyond them, but certainly 30 years old is getting up there for these systems, so I'm not sure what the exact life cycle is on them. But it's possible that in 15, 20 years after we do this, that we'll be back in the same boat and have to do it again.
Just a Canadian company that supplies this system here, Hermosa.
Through the chair, if I may. Hermosa is a Canadian company. The parts for the PLC, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they're probably made in China or Taiwan. Would be my best guess. I believe they're going with ABB. And they've been around a long time. They continue to come out with new products and services, so should be able to either, sustain us or be upgradable when the time comes.
So to follow up what Paul said, these will all be able to be accessed externally. And you can sit at home and read what's going on or know what's going on, right? This is the latest technology. So,
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
I have no questions. I think it's straightforward. We need to replace the system. It happens all the time in the valley. We do those type of things. It's no different, really.
Yeah, no questions or concerns. No questions. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the other two alternatives, they might look a little cheaper, but if it doesn't work, then you're paying twice the price in a few years, so. Sorry.
Through the chair, if I may, just to give a little background on our current system. The last PLC card that we had to replace was almost impossible to find, and we ended up having to go to eBay to find the right part for our system. So it's Bristol Babcock, and they don't exist anymore. So it's pretty much impossible to get parts for it anymore. So
That's what happens for sure. Okay, great, thanks.
We have that motion on the floor. Everyone remembers it. I won't reread it. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? That's carried. We want to do 7.2. I have a motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Wolvette. That the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated March 24th, 2025, regarding the meter replacement program, resident sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, be received, and that the Environmental Services Committee selects a preferred option regarding water meter installation for residents with electromagnetic sensitivity. We got that staff report ahead of time. Is there anything you wanted to add, Paul, or let's open it up?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? I'll start on my right. Nothing for now.
What would the cost, because one of the options there was to install the meter pit outside. What is the rough cost for the meter pit installation?
It would be roughly $3,000.
Would be either that they got the cost of that or the cost. And previously, they've always been monitored by, like, it's just been manually read.
Yeah, with a touchpad on the outside, yeah.
So then there's the 35 homes that are left. It would just be a matter that we would still have to manually read those 35 homes.
So through the chair, there's 35 homes left to be converted. This only affects about 4 or 5. where
Okay.
People are outright refusing to have any radio transmission in or around their home. And it's been explained to them that, all of their neighbors have this, so it's very close to them anyway. Nevertheless, I'm not saying it's not a real thing and they don't have very real concerns, but we do have to move forward with the program, and that's why I've kind of outlaid these three options that are available to us.
So that my other thinking was just, can we continue to monitor, like to read these manually, but we would want to pass that charge to them? Or is that something we just still send a technician? Would be what, a day to send someone out to pick up those last residents? Is this a charge that we have to push on to them, or is this something that we can still provide to read those old meters? Because frankly, by the sounds of it, if they're questioning the magnetic fields, they'll just say whatever they can to not get one of these meters.
Yeah, through the chair. So they can, we do have meters that don't have the transmitters integrated into them. So what we would do is put in a pit style meter that does not have a transmitter on it, and then continue to use the touchpad. But that kind of eliminates the efficiencies that we've received by just being able to drive around for a day in a vehicle and pick up all of the reads. They'd have to go specifically to these houses, get out of their vehicles, do the touchpad, and then there's some work internally that has to be done too. So that's kind of what I've outlaid in option 3. We can continue to do manual reads, but it does come at a cost to us
To that, we would pass that.
that we
cost.
could pass on to them.
Through you to Mr. DeSilva, this option about the manual reads, like, have you explained that to these individuals that this is the way we're going, it's gonna cost you this money? I know I have to respect the fact that they're concerned about the waves and all that, but have you laid it out, say, if we go this route, this is gonna cost you at the end?
Through the chair, during our initial conversations with them, we immediately went to well, then you're gonna need to put a meter pit outside of the home. So having the option of continuing to do manual reads was never discussed with the residents at that time.
Okay.
But if that's the way the committee believes that we should go, we would contact them. I think I would still try to persuade them to locate a transmitter somewhere on their property. Again, given the reason that radio waves are all around them. So maybe we can locate it, in a garden, which we have a bunch that are located in gardens or beside trees now. That's not fixed to the home. The farther away, maybe the more comfortable they would be. I guess I would try to get them to agree to that option first and foremost. If they outright refuse, then it's kind of option 2 or option 3. So if I can make a suggestion, then maybe I would say, if agreeable, option 1 might be the best, because we still get to use our technology, right? And then if they still refuse to agree to that option, then we move on to perhaps option 2 or 3.
Well, what concerns me a little bit here, and I mean, I don't know anything about the waves. I don't know about the rest of the people that's got this same installation in their home. So if we're going to take 4 or 5 people and say, yeah, you signals, maybe what about the other 3,500 homes are going to maybe question the same thing? Like, it either is or it isn't, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, there may be some people more susceptible to these waves. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but like I say, it's kind of to come up with this now. People find out, oh, these things got these waves. We don't want anywhere near our house neither. Like, have you did any research at all you did some here to find out, saying it's not a bother, but yeah, kind of zeroing down to a few people and kind of admitting that, yeah, there is a problem with these radio waves, kind of makes you a little uncomfortable. So I don't know what the answer is, but I guess maybe extra charge is the answer. We got to send somebody out there manually reading something. If you can get away with putting it out in their garden, well, any extra cost should be probably should have to pay for it. My opinion.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, providing these last, 4 or 5 residents with an option, I don't think comes at the admission that these radio waves are harmful. I've done as much reading on it as I could possibly understand, not being a scientist or a medical professional. I think most people understand that these are all around us. They're, cell phones remit the same waves, Wi-Fi systems in homes. This is literally everywhere we walk. And I think, once these folks move, if they move properties, then that would give us an opportunity then to put in a new meter at that time. And they need to realize that they might move into a property, whether it be in this municipality or another one that already has one of these things, and they might not have the option in the future to have it removed.
How are these hydrometers? They're waves, right? They no longer come and read your hydrometer. These smart meters are all read off way up, some kind of signal.
I believe that's true.
Maybe the same type of thing, but anyways, I guess, sum it up, do what you can to keep it. There are people concerned around things like that, and if you do your best, when push comes to shove in the end, you're gonna have to make a decision whether you're gonna do a manual read and they're gonna have to pay for it. That's, no different than people where we charge them now for turning on and shutting off their water. If they go away for the winter, they have to pay for it because we have to send people out to do it. So do what you can, and in the end, to charge for it.
I guess, yeah, for me, I mean, like Mayor Atkinson said, I won't downplay the concerns some people have. Those are concerns they have. But obviously, it'll become a compliance issue. So is there a concern with offering? I mean, it seems like all 3 options ultimately are at the expense of the homeowner who's pushing back on the quote unquote provided service. So is there a world where you have, here are the 3 options, you have select one, or is it staff's opinion to staff one?
I think that's a good compromise. And even if you look at the options in order, I think that might be an approach that we would want to take. Offer them option 1, we still want to use the technology, but perhaps there's a compromise that we can have with the homeowner as to where it's located, that they might feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, let's say it's not beside their bedroom where they sleep, for example. Option 2 would be, you're still going to have one on your property, but it's going to be out closer to the property line in a meter pit at your cost. And if they still refuse to have it on their property at all, then it's okay. Well, then you're going to need to pay for us to go out there and read it.
And then my second question would be, since 2 of those have fees related to it, is that something that we'd have to take to council for fees bylaw? And at that point, council would have a final.
Yes, we would have to add it to the comprehensive fees bylaw.
So I guess for the committee, it's almost like an endorsement for council then, if we went that route. So how's the committee feeling in terms of what they're comfortable endorsing?
One other question, if you don't mind, are we having to manually read any meters anywhere that aren't giving off a good enough signal? Or are we able to just these few?
So through the chair, currently we're manually reading about 35 because that's the amount that are outstanding in the program. Every once in a while, for whatever reason, we don't get a read on one that transmits.
Yeah.
Normally it's because maybe we didn't get close enough to the property and we just didn't pick it up. So then when we go to the next day or when will just drive by again, and normally it's not an issue. So just these like last 35, which we're dealing with those as well. But I just really wanted to bring this particular issue to the committee's attention.
Okay, that's fine.
Where are we at, or with what the committee wants to endorse? Is the committee kind of in favor of one specifically, or is the 1, 2, 3 triage kind of something that?
Personally, I like the 1, 2, 3. We do our best to make them happy. We exhaust all the things, and when we don't work out, well, we got to read the meter. So you're going to have to go there. Cost. Just my opinion.
So is the motion fine as is, since we're just selecting the third option, which would be 1, 2, 3?
Yes, I think so. I can take that away and when I write the report to council, I can clarify that that's exactly what the committee endorsed.
I think it's a good idea to do that. I think it shows the residents two things. Number one, we have to do something. It gives them a little bit of input in what they are going to be affected by. And laying it out this way, then they're gonna have to make a decision one way or the other. So for both 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and then if the resident had further pushback. Again, that would come back to council or to this committee to. Right. Or refusing any of those three options, but had another compromise, whatever that might be. Or would it be a matter that it's these three options, take it or leave it?
I guess at some, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess at some point, the way the bylaw is written would be a service. Dependent on having what bylaw states, correct? So if someone blanket refused. You're right, if the bylaw says the water service is suspended, is that what the way the bylaw is written?
I believe so, like if we're not able to read the meter, or I should say, if we're prevented access to the meter, then we have the ability to shut off the water. So I would, in my opinion, option 3 is, I mean, once that's approved by council and it's in the comprehensive fees bylaw, then the choice is, they don't have much of a choice. They're gonna get the service fee. So, I mean, if they were to come to me with another compromise and I thought, we could make it work, we might consider it, but when I was doing my research on this was kind of the only 3 things I could really come up with.
Yeah, so I guess option 3 would be the last. resort. Yeah. Okay. There's no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. And again, that is to our selected preference would be 1, 2, 3, the triage kind of. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have nothing under bylaws, so I'll go to section 9. I have a motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Wolvett, that the minutes from the laws meeting be received, and that is for Thursday, 2025. Were there any questions about the laws minutes? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. We have nothing under action required, so I'll go to section 11. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wolvett, seconded by Mayor Atkinson, that the correspondence related to recommended reading and routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Service Committee filed accordingly. We have 4 items underneath there. It was a flushing and CCTV public notice, a purchasing report, water charges letter, and a condolences and congratulations policy. Is there any questions about those items for recommended reading? Mayor Atkinson?
Well, a couple right off the bat, Mr. Chair. First of all, that condolences, congratulations policy. I believe the clerk wanted that on to go to all committees, so everybody is aware of what our policy is within the municipality. Secondly, the water charges letter that was written. Has there been any further discussion or any with this gentleman that sent this in? Or was he appealing to us for some consideration?
Yeah, through the chair, he's appealing to us for some consideration. And special thanks to Kaylin, who actually pulled the reports from back in 2015, 2016, where the town used to have a billing program where things were done completely different in former Plympton as they were in Wyoming.
Right.
And this back in 2016, things were really aligned so that everyone was treated equally. And at that time, it was decided that no exceptions would be made for folks that turned off their service in the wintertime and then turned it on again in the spring. They would continue to get that fixed monthly fee.
Right.
So that was a decision of council back in 2016.
So what this gentleman is asking for is for forgiveness and for us to drop that charge for him.
Correct.
Sympathize with him. And I respect that, but I think, no, I think once the decision was made, this is the route we go, we have to maintain it. That's just my own personal.
Well, I remember the topics very well. There's two topics at the time. This was one, shutting water on, off, especially on seasonal outages or whatever. And yeah, it was debatable at the time, and you know, I didn't really agree with it at the time neither. I thought, like, if you're going away, it makes perfect sense to shut the water off. Really, not just for them, but for us, because if you get a leak between that, you know, before the meter or whatever, like there was cottages out there that weren't they're not winterized. They gotta be shut off. My case, I mean, modern home, I get down the basement when I go away, shut the water off before the meter. No, there's because we have shut offs to be able to replace the meter, right? So if there's a leak between there and the road, I don't care if it leaks for 6 months. If they're not going to shut it off out there, well, that's not my problem. But some of these situations, they didn't have that option. It was either shut it off at the road or we got quite a leak. Now, an example of that is my daughter's house, fairly modern home, but she developed a leak right at the meter, some kind of a big brass fitting, and plastic pipe come into the meter. And that thing started leaking, but the meter was in the basement, right in her basement there. So there was a situation that had to be shut off. And you know, at that time we talked about who do you get a hold of to shut the thing off, even shut it off, right? So at that time, and I better be careful what community I mentioned here, but you call this emergency number, nobody got back to you, whatever. So we knew some individuals that worked in the plumbing business, and they had a key. And they were able to shut that water off for us on the weekend. And then it got fixed during the week. But this was quite a debatable subject. And trouble is, you know, there wasn't that many homes, but then everybody hollered about the fairness, you know, like, why should we have to send somebody out there to shut it off and then in the spring turn it back on? And yeah, anyways, it got passed. I didn't really agree with it. I thought it was a good idea, but the argument at that time was whether we shut your water off or we don't shut your water off, we still have to maintain all those lines. It's got to be paid for. So that was really the big argument that said, hey, no, everybody pays regardless. So that's how it ended up. So yeah, I feel for them. I personally don't think it should be an issue. I don't think it was a lot of extra money to shut them off or turn them on because we're already here. The water guys at that time were already here during the day. It's not like you're having to call somebody out in overtime to go shut the water off. But it was a debatable subject, but this is what it is. This is our policy. I can't see it being changed, to be quite honest with you, but.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I think it's like two they're parallel topics, but there's the turn on and turn off fee, which is $110 each time. So somebody calls in the fall, they want it turned off, it's $110. They call in the spring, it's another $110. $220 to turn off and on the water. It does seem kind of expensive, and I think it needs to be reviewed, and we might bring a recommendation back regarding that. When we can determine how much staff time it actually takes. And then there's the issue of, does somebody still get charged their flat fees even when they're not using water? And I guess some good context to know is that when we pay for water through the law system, it's essentially fixed. We're paying based on how much consumption we had 2 years previous. And what that does is it says how much did all the users pay, or how much did all the users use, what percentage of that, and that's how much you pay the following 2 years. So our costs are fixed. So going back to Councillor Wolvet's point is, if we have all these fixed costs, that because we have to maintain the system, that should probably be borne by the ratepayers as well.
Anyone on my right want to jump in on this one?
I feel for them, but it's flat for everybody. Everybody pays the same, so can't make exceptions for everybody.
So are we saying that we would review the shut off, turn on fees?
Yeah, so through the chairs, we do the comprehensive review of all the fees every single year. And these they were raised a number of years ago to $90, and they've kind of continued to be raised by the rate of inflation since then. Perhaps we could review exactly how much it is costing us to go to turn off and turn on water. It's not gonna be $25, but it might not be 110 either.
Each
So
time.
each time.
Is it not good insurance for them? It's $220, but they know they're not gonna have a flooded basement while they're away.
Mhm.
So it's like an insurance policy. They still have to pay the flat fee because everybody has to pay,
Mhm.
because we have to maintain our lines. But he's sure that he's not gonna get a flooded basement.
I think that's a good point.
That's the way I would think of it, but
Yeah, well, at one time. Insurance companies used to have to prove somebody was in your house, was it every 24 hours, something like that, to check for that. I don't think that applies now, but. Yeah, it's pretty good insurance to know that you're not gonna get flooded out,
I
but
think their agent would like to know that too.
yeah. That makes sense, but anyway, saying that, just to follow up on Paul, maybe it's something they could take a look at is. Look at what is it cost us to turn on and shut off somebody's water for a seasonal? Maintaining the fixed rate, but. $200 some is a fair bit of money, to be honest with you. Like I say, they're already here during the day. So maybe take a look whether it's successful or not, have a look at it.
Chair, through you to Mr. DeSilva, would that be our people that turn that on and off? We have like contractors do that.
So through the chair, Jacobs can do it, but we also have a certified operator that can do it as well. It just depends on who's busy that day and if it's scheduled. If it's scheduled, then Rob can do it. If it's an emergency, normally it's Jacobs that has to do it.
Just a question. Thank you.
So I'm gonna assume we're not pulling anything from that. I guess just a clerical question. Where was this letter left, or is staff waiting just for direction before they respond? Have we already responded, or?
Well, I would let him know that it would come to this committee and then I would respond after talking to this committee.
And is this gonna be added to recommended reading for so next on Wednesday? Or is this just gonna live here and stay here at the committee level?
We could add it to recommended reading. It might be a little bit late to get it on there. I think the agenda's pretty much done. I could check with the clerk tomorrow.
I was just wondering, because I guess in that case, is the committee fine with that response then, that it's what it is, but you know, there might be a fee review bylaw in terms of the turn on, turn off service.
I think it's. Really, unless we make any major changes, there's really nothing to say to council. All we're doing is just reinforcing the policy that's already here with the committee, so it never hurts to let council read things, don't get me wrong, I like to read it, but we're not making any changes. Now, unless they want to read the letter.
Well, they have the opportunity to read the.
They get all the same stuff we get.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we will leave that with staff then in their capable hands. I will call for the vote then to receive and file those 4 items. All in favor? That's carried. Anything under new business from the committee, I'll relate to water environmental services. Start, am I right?
Nothing.
That's good.
The only thing I would have is with all this rain. I'm just curious about infiltration. You know, we talked in depth about sump pumps. Here's a great example. You get your readings, right? You get all your readings. Will you be able to have some of that information that shows this rain and infiltration through the plants?
So through the chair, last night was, well, yesterday through early this morning, I know for sure the Wyoming area received over 90 mils of rain. I've got some pretty clear data that's showing timeframes of when it was raining and flows, pump station levels. So there's definitely a problem. Sure. We noticed that last night between Wyoming and portion of Plympton. not mistaken, we still have a couple of pump stations that are struggling to catch up, so. It'll take a little bit to fully pull all that data together, but definitely bring a report. The council or to the Environmental Service Committee here and kind of outline potential spots to look at.
Well, what I'm thinking on this whole matter of some pumps is that that's the kind of information that justifies doing what we're probably gonna have to do, right? Say, hey, here's a great example. There was a time period, we got all this rain. Here's what happened on these plants. Right? So when you're making that kind of a decision, you got something in front of you says, hey, have a look at this. We couldn't handle it. So
So last night, I ended up closing the overflow valve to the pump station here in Wyoming. Because the creek level had come up so high, it started to initially go into the pump station. It's due to an aging backflow on that line. We did manage to get it caught up relatively quickly, but we kept that valve closed as a test overnight just to see. And with the additional rain, it didn't.
but that was due to the creek level coming up, right? Not infiltration.
For the initial one, it would be a bit of both. For the second event overnight was definitely infiltration, some pumps, cross connections. And that's why I wanted to perform a test last night just to see if that creek level was actually affecting the pump station capacity. I'll put together a report just to, I guess, help fight our case of you need to approach people and see about making some changes so that, you know, our system can run more efficiently and with less headache.
Thank you for that. And I suspected you would have had a problem. Every creek was over the top. So just one other question. How do we make out down here around the Wyoming Baptist Church, I'll say, and then street there?
So through the chair, with the Stonehouse drain being cleaned out and reshaped and those new culverts put in, it did help. But I think just the amount of rain that we received, it surged really quickly. But it was coming back down quicker than normal. Which indicates that the water's at least getting away sooner, because it used to be, you know, it was almost overflowing all day. Where it seemed to kind of started dropping after an hour. After 2 hours, it might have been down 2 or 3 feet, and it did make a big difference. It's just,
We didn't, that you know of, it didn't have any sewer backups. Have you heard of any?
Through the chair, I can add some additional context. I did not receive any reports of sewer backups here in Wyoming. I did receive some in Kamalaki. Those are difficult conversations to have with people, obviously. I did explain to them that we did have a subsidy program that typically covers 100% of the cost to install a backwater valve. So I think we're going to have a few people take us up on that offer for sure. And just for the benefit of the committee members that aren't on council, council just recently agreed to a new bylaw. We had discussed it here in the summer regarding our ability to do inspections on private plumbing to confirm whether some pumps are or are not connected to the sanitary sewer. So that was a really forward-thinking thing, and that'll help us when we develop the inflow and infiltration mitigation plan over the next few months.
Okay, that's all I have.
Is anything for you? Nothing besides that, no. Jacobs? Nothing?
oh, okay.
Alrighty. I'll move on to 13. I have a motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Councilor Wolvette. At the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee regular meeting be adjourned until the next regular meeting to be held May 1st, 2025 at 5 p.m.